Diana Lidstone here, the Entrepreneur's GPS, and welcome to another edition of Guest Expert Talks, where I sit down with some experts that I've met through my travels and through my entrepreneurship, and they share with us what they are experts at. And so today I want to welcome somebody that I've known virtually from a long distance, we could say for a while. For many years, actually. We met on somebody's webinar, I think it was, or telesummit. And then I go down to a live event down in the States, and who walks in but my guest here, Diana Needham. And Diana is from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. She is the founder of Business Book Partners. And she founded this in 2008 to provide marketing strategy and self-publishing services to entrepreneurs, speakers, and business leaders. And I did not know this, but she wrote this in her bio. With nearly 60 best-selling authors and hundreds of published authors, she helps you grow your business with a book. And welcome, Diana. So we've got double D's here today.
Yeah. It's the Diana Squared today.
Yeah, the Diana Show.
Yeah, it is for sure. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to come share.
Well, it was very interesting because I met you, I think before I wrote my book, but at that time I didn't know that you were into helping people write books. And then we met again, as I said, at this conference. And since then, we've talked a lot about writing books and that sort of thing. And, you know, as somebody who works with a lot of coaches and other entrepreneurs, I often hear from them, "Oh, I'm going to write a book." And I go, "Really? Okay." It's not that writing a book is a bad thing, right, Diana?
It's actually a great thing. You know, it's a great thing when you're clear about your message. And we're going to talk a little bit about the questions that you need to answer in order to, what you want to do is make sure that the book you write is the right book.
That's it.
It is the right book for the purpose, like for your business. Like almost all the authors I work with, they're writing a book to position themselves. Exactly. They want, just when we think about when we go to conferences and we hear speakers, when they can be introduced as the author of something or the best-selling author of something, our perception of that person changes.
It does.
And so, it's the most powerful positioning tool that we have available. In my opinion, it's not as hard as we want to make it. The truth is, we are not writing War and Peace.
That's right.
I pulled out of my bookshelf, just a few examples of client books, and they don't have to be huge. They really don't. They need to be big enough to get your message across, and you want it to be big enough that you have the spine, your name, and the title of the book printed. But we're not writing a tome, and nor is anybody going to read it.
Right.
Really.
Yeah.
A business book is meant to solve a problem. So, yeah. But there are a few key things you need to be clear about before you actually start writing. And some people are a bit surprised that step one is not write the book.
No, I know. As I said, I often get coaches or people who are in my programs, and they're desperate to write a book. And so I've heard of people hire, fancy publishers who charge them this great big fee, and then they end up with a pallet, literally a pallet of books delivered to their driveway. And I go, I'm not sure that was the best investment of your time, money, or energy.
Yeah. Sadly, on average, I wish I didn't have to say this, but on average, the self-published author sells 57 copies, primarily to friends and family.
Yeah.
And that is not why you invested this time and energy and blood, sweat, and tears and dollars to produce a physical product. Well, why does that happen? It happens because people don't really think through their strategy at the beginning.
Right, right. Yeah. And so you
And
have 5 questions that will help people understand whether they're ready to write a book. Is that correct?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so you're going to walk us through those today. So I'm really,
I'm happy to do that. The first question is, why are you writing this book? And what is the big why? And it's not a head answer, it's a heart answer. Like, who are you here to help? This message, this book that you're writing, tied to your business, is tied to something that is near and dear to you. And so why are you writing it? And I've had people give me, they give me the head answer. I want to use it to get bigger speaking engagements. I want to do podcasts. I want to, but I keep probing and prodding for the big why. Like, what is in here? What is driving you to get this message out? And there's always a personal story. There's a story behind why I want to write the book about whatever it is. And it's because we have a deep passion for this. We want to help more people. We want to share our experience. There's an urgent thing. I've had people say, you know what? I've known I needed to write this book for 10 years. I've been like, no, but it's the calling is still in here. So I always ask people, why are you writing this book? Get really clear about why you're writing the book. Why is that important? Because at some point in this process of writing the book, you're probably going to want to quit.
I remember
and that's
that.
when I have to remind you, you probably remember that. That's when I need to remind you of, okay, so tell me again at the very beginning, you told me your big mission was to help thousands of entrepreneurs grow their business. What's going to happen if you don't put this book out there? It's a grounding point.
Yeah. Perfect.
So first and sometimes I have to dig. And one of the reasons too that's important is whatever that personal story is the introduction.
I like that.
So if you think about the books that have had the most impact on you, they opened with a powerful story in present tense, as if it were happening like right now. So if I could just give you an example, I worked with this author who wrote Small Business Finance for the busy entrepreneur. And I asked her, why are you writing this book? And she told me this very heartbreaking story of how she watched somebody in her family lose everything they owned. On a Saturday morning, they sat on their deck and watched the moving truck back up and take everything out of this family member's home because they had a business. They didn't heed the advice of their CPA. They had somebody embezzling money from their company they didn't know about. She had tried to help them. Things got better for a while, and eventually they lost not only their current home, they lost their vacation home, and they had to start over at age 63.
Yeah.
So if you are a small business owner and you open the book and that's the opening story, would you keep reading it?
I think I might.
So that's one of the reasons I spend a lot of time working with people on their story, is because some version of that, whatever they're comfortable sharing, right, is their introduction. Yeah. And that's what's going to hook us in. That's what's going to bring us in. That's the big why of why she wrote this book. She doesn't want people to end up the way she saw this family member end up. Yeah. When it all could have been preventable if they had just followed what she had in her book. So,
Perfect.
yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. So the second question to ask is, who is this book for? Like, who is my audience? And, you work with entrepreneurs. We really have to be clear about who is it? And who is it? Not just a sea of faces. I tell people, see one person. If you can just see that one person,
Yeah,
they have a name,
that's right.
they have a heart, they have a challenge, and you have the answer. Who is that person? And to write out in as much detail as you can the details about that person. How
So
old
in
are they? Are they married? Are they single? Do they have kids? If they have kids, what is their age? What is their career? Do they have a business? What are they really, what do we know about this person?
in business coaching terminology, we might call that your ideal client or your dream client avatar, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
because if you're going to write a book to attract clients, wouldn't you want to write it for your dream client, the person that you want to come into your business? Hello? I mean, it's all connected.
We
It
see that
really
it's all
is. It really
connected. Yes.
it's all connected. So if you're writing a book about your business, you need to be talking, your who is whoever your ideal client is. And the next question is, what's the big challenge this ideal client has? Right? For this book I just told you about, small business finance for the busy entrepreneur, her ideal client is generally a woman who's doesn't know where her money's going. Like, she's generating money, but she's scared of spreadsheets.
Oh, I know a
Like
few of those.
yeah, I do too. And so she wrote the book in an order, and I don't know if you can actually see this, but on the cover of this book, we've got this little house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so we actually organized the content of the foundation, the financial fund, what you need to have for foundation. We have a whole section about what do the walls need to look like? What are the infrastructure? And then the roof is the protection. That's about insurance. And, so it goes from simpler ideas to more complex ideas, because her ideal client is someone that gets easily confused and frustrated because they don't like messing with the numbers. So when you know what their biggest challenge is, then and you've been working with clients for a while, you have a process that you take people through.
And we would call that I would call it like a signature program or methodology.
Yep, exactly. So it's either your process, like where do you start with people and walk them through the process. Sometimes it's concepts. So there's some core concepts that you're always teaching, and you can organize your book that way. But we have to know what the challenge is of our client to know what to write about. And for most of us, our clients have multiple problems, right? They don't just have one challenge, they've got multiple challenges. And so in that case, I say pick the challenge that they most ask you about. Right. What is that one big thing? So for you, I think it's probably marketing, right?
It is. Yeah.
So they don't know how to market their business. So if, helping them figure out simple ways to market their business would be an awesome thing to do. So there's a lot of other things I know you teach people about, networking and all sorts of other things, but the marketing side of it, the core marketing concepts are probably the key thing, the first thing they ask you for, right?
Well, actually, they usually ask me for, well, how do I market on Facebook? Or should I be on Facebook or should I be on LinkedIn? And,
Oh,
yeah, that's what they ask.
which goes back to, where is your audience?
Right. Yeah.
Who is your audience?
Right.
And where
More
are they?
likely, who is your audience? Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
And what is your message? So, yeah. So we have what's their why, who is their audience, what's their audience's big challenge,
Yeah, and the next thing is really about what do you want your reader to know, believe, accept, or understand? And
No.
the reason that that question is important is that when someone is reading your book, you are giving them an experience. You want them to have a feeling as they're reading it. You want them to understand certain things. And when we can answer that question before we start writing, what is it that I want them to know, believe, accept, understand? It creates a framework to keep us from straying off our topic. Not that we would ever do
No,
that,
no, no, never, never. Yeah.
but anytime you kind of get lost in the weeds and you start writing about something that's a tangent from your main topic, if you go back to this and figure out what is it I really want them to understand, is this necessary?
Right.
Yep. Or is it something extra I just decided I was gonna put in there?
Or I could teach them
And
at a later date or whatever. Yeah.
The biggest question, and the one that most people get a little bit stuck on, they might be clear about who their ideal client, their why, and their ideal client. They haven't really thought about the last question, which is, what do you want the book to do for you? Right? What is the purpose of the book? Some people I've talked to don't have a signature program. Right? They haven't really thought about, I could use this book to lead people into a program. I could use this book to get more speaking engagements, because when I'm a published author, it's easier to get speaking engagements, to get on stages. It's easier to get on podcasts. I now have something I can sell at the back of the room when I'm speaking. So figuring out what is the outcome, what is the result that I really want from this book? And I spent a good bit of time helping people get really clear about that, because when we know the answer to that, then you reverse engineer the process. And this is just how I work, how my brain works. I reverse engineer the process so that while we're writing, we're also figuring out, who do I need to connect with? What events should I be going to? Who should I be meeting in person? What should I be writing about on my blog? What should I be sending out? How do I get my message out and find the people that are going to help me when it comes time to launch this book?
Yeah, and I think that's a huge thing, is what do you want the book to do for you? And I'll use myself as an example. When I was considering writing a book, the first thing I thought of was writing about my daughter's journey through her chronic fatigue and what it was like to be an entrepreneur and support, a chronically ill family member. And I wrote a few chapters of that book. And then it kind of dawned on me, what is this going to do for my business? And I went, it's not the direction my business is going, so why am I writing this? And when I realized that, it was also, I was having trouble writing it. It wasn't flowing. It wasn't easy to write. And it made me realize to stop and actually do some questioning of myself, which led me to, a different path. So I think, yeah, it's so important.
Yeah. So when it really breaks my heart when I run into somebody and their book's been out for a year or longer, and it's not doing anything for their business or for their bank account. And in a lot of cases, it's because somebody told them they should write a book. I'm thinking of one particular author I worked with early in the process, and she had written all this series of articles in some kind of women's publication. Somebody said, you really should write a book. So she did. And what she did was pull in these articles. Half of the book is written just general women's empowerment, if you will. And the other half is written for women leaders inside companies. And she was really disappointed. She was one of those people that sold 57 copies, primarily to friends and family, right? It's not that it was a bad book. It's not that the content was, it was well designed. That's the other thing. Your cover needs to be professionally done. Your interior needs to be, everything needs to be professionally done. Even a self-published book does not need to look self-published. It should be as high quality as anything that comes out of any of the major publishing houses. So it was a very well done book. It was just that her message was not targeted. So I can remember she and her husband actually drove through where I live. They have two homes, and one's in Canada right by Niagara Falls and one's in Florida, and they were coming this way. And we had a VIP day. And I can remember asking her, what is the result that you really want from this book? Like, we've got the book. What is it we really want? And she was giving me circular answers. Well, I really like to work with nonprofits, and da-da-da, da-da-da. And I kept, you're shaking your head like you've been in this chair, right? And I kept asking the same question in different ways, trying to get something, right? Because I can't help you market if I don't know who it is and what's the result we're trying to get. And finally she said, I want to be doing workshops, 2 and 3 day workshops inside of companies, helping their women leaders untangle the organizational chaos they have on their teams.
Well, there you go.
All right, the heavens opened.
Yes.
All right, now I know our market is women leaders inside of corporate.
Yeah.
Right? Even though half the book is more like general. Anyway, we were able to relaunch, we relaunched the book, and it's kind of a funny story. She then went on to write the book that she should have written to start with.
Well, it was.
So now she has 2 books.
There you
and now
go.
When she's speaking, she bundles them and she can sell them as a set.
Yeah.
Not that the first book is throwaway, but it just wasn't targeted because no one had ever asked her the question. These questions we're talking about: who is this for? What's the challenge that it solves, and what's the result that you want?
Right.
And once we untangled all that, figured all that out, it was awesome. And then she wrote the second book, which was it was all focused on women leaders and the problems they have in their teams.
There you go. So this brings up a question, though, of, do you also work with people? You've answered the question, but, somebody's written a book and it's stalled. It's not doing anything. It's not selling. So you can help them kind of relaunch it, rewrite it, or...
Yeah. I mean, generally, in my experience so far, the authors that I've worked with in that situation, their book has been a high quality book. It just wasn't targeted well enough. So yes, there are things we can do. If the author is very clear and they want to reopen the book and revise, we certainly can. It's really about, if you want to do a bestseller campaign, which a lot of my clients want, they want that bestseller designation. That requires that you have partners. Like you reach out. So one of the first questions, I said this to somebody earlier today, if I ask you right now, off the top of your head, tell me how many people, if you emailed or called them today and said, hey, I'm so excited, my book is launching on Kindle on March 15th. Would you be willing to help me promote and get the book in the hands of as many people as possible? How many people would say yes? It was dead silence on the other end of the line. I said, well, I just want a general number. Is it 10? Is it 50? Is it 100? Like how many? She goes, 500.
Yeah. Okay.
Like 500, really? And then I found out she's been doing this for a long time. She has a big community. Okay, well then no problem. We can do it. No problem there doing a launch.
Yeah.
It's when the people only have a handful, then we have to work on building their connections.
Yeah.
So that they have enough people to support a launch effort. So that's why, I've worked with hundreds of authors to publish, and 60 of them have actually received their bestseller designation. Some of them didn't have the community to actually do a bestseller campaign quite yet. They may a year from now, 2 years from now, but right now, or they just didn't have the energy. I worked with one lady who was in her 80s, and she just said, you know what? I just don't have the energy to do the next leg of this journey. Like, I've got the book in my hand. I'm good selling it when I'm speaking, and it's all good. But some people do want the bestseller designation. That requires that you have a network. You have people that will help you.
Sure. Yeah. It is a journey for sure.
It is. And so you'd asked me a question about who I really work with. I work with people, everything from I've got an idea, even if it's a really vague idea. I've got some little idea and I know that I need to write a book. There's a calling, there's something I need to get out. So I can help them everything from figuring out what's their topic, what's their outline, what should that, all the way through the whole process. I have a book cover designer, I have a layout team for the interior. The thing that I don't provide is actually editing. I help them find the right editor. So people at the very beginning I work with, some people come to me, the book they're already writing. They want the bestseller campaign, or they don't know how to market the book.
Right.
So they want more of a book marketing, book launch package. And then I also have people who've published, their book's been out for a while, but it's not doing anything for them. And they want to revisit, how can I get more mileage out of this asset that I invested and created?
Cool. Very cool. Well, this has been really helpful, I believe. I think it will answer a lot of questions for a lot of viewers. And you also have a gift for them, which I'm going to type in the comments of the video, the URL. And it's called Want to Write Book DL. So we'll type that in. And any other words of wisdom that you would like to share, Diana, that, maybe wasn't included in those 5 questions?
I think the key thing is follow what your heart is telling you, right? I mean, if it's time to write a book, know that there are people waiting for you. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that there are people waiting. And some people will say, well, there's already 55 books out on my topic. Yeah, but not written from your perspective.
Exactly. Nobody's
not using. And how many small business finance books are there? A gazillion, right? But how many are written from the perspective of someone who watched a family member lose everything and have to start over at 63?
Yeah.
That just, no one else has written it from your perspective, from your point of view, using the experience that you've gained over time. No one else has written that. And there are people waiting that can only hear that message from you, because there's something about you,
that they connect with, that they hear, that is important to them. Yeah, exactly.
They're waiting. So that's another, I would just leave people like, there are people waiting, and you might be the answer to their prayer.
That's it. Awesome.
So what if you don't show up?
That's right. You're doing them a disservice, really, by not showing up, by not writing that book. So thank you so much, Diana. It's been a pleasure having you here today and demystifying some of the what you need to know before you actually sign on the dotted line and go out and start writing your book, with a publisher or with somebody else. So,
yeah. Speaking of publishers, what I would say about that is make sure you read the fine print, because I've worked with a few authors recently with publishers, and it has been very challenging. I mean, at the end of the day, they own the ISBN, they own the Amazon account, they own the pricing for the book. In some cases, they have rights to the content. So and most of us make an assumption they are going to, quote unquote, market the book. That's not what happens. So, if you have a big message that you want to get out, self-publishing is the fastest path to get it done.
Perfect.
Don't wait for a publisher, an agent, or anybody else to take your work. Just get your message down you get it down on paper. There are other people that can help you get it out.
That's it. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you. I
Oh,
know your time is precious. You have lots of irons in the fire. So thank you again for sharing this with us. And I look forward. I'll share the video with you as soon as I get it
awesome.
posted and whatever. So keep
Okay,
well.
awesome.
And I look forward to talking with you again.
Alrighty. Thanks so much for having me today.
All right.
Bye for now.